The Trek Geeks Podcast Network is proud to have FanSets as its presenting sponsor. FanSets is the place for amazing pin collectibles with over 400 officially licensed Star Trek pins and new releases every month. Stay tuned for a special discount code good on your next order at fansets.com just for Trek Geeks listeners. FanSets. Our pins have character.
This episode is also sponsored by Science Division, the makers of the galaxy's first interactive Tribble that you can control with your very own smartphone. See their limited edition giant silver Tribble available for pre-order today at sciencediv.com. Science Division. Trouble's never been this fun.
We are the Borg, and you are listening to the biggest little show this side of the Alpha Quadrant. It's the Trek Geeks Podcast with Bill Smith and Dan Davidson. You will listen. Resistance is futile. You must comply.
From the winery at Podfleet Command. Boy, I really wish we had one of those. That would be amazing, wouldn't it? Yeah, forget that. Can we actually build a winery?
We can do whatever we want.
It's the biggest little show this side of the Alpha Quadrant, the flagship of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network. Greetings to you, wine consumers all over the galaxy and non-wine consumers, and welcome to the Trek Geeks Podcast. I'm your co-host, Bill Smith. This is episode number 294, and you've already heard his dulcet tones, and I'm sorry for that. I really am, because if you get to the outtake, you're going to wonder why you've listened that long. He's the largely questionable Dan Davidson, and Dan, I think this should be the new Podfleet Command headquarters, a winery.
I think that's I got plenty of land right out my window right here. We can build a winery, and what I think is we should put like a 500-gallon tank underground like you do for propane, fill it with wine, and set a tap in the kitchen. So we just pour that wine in whenever we want. Fill it with some wine and get some cheese.
I have some concerns. The first of which is it's not warm here year-round, and that's kind of a requirement for me.
Oh, we'll have heaters and everything.
No. I don't want to live anywhere where it snows.
Well, we can pipe it to way down to where you go. That'd be a long pipe, but you know.
Or we could just build a winery.
It's great to be here, pal.
Yeah, thank you. We start talking about wine, and we're off on a tangent.
I think I've had too much already.
I wish you would start, because that would make you far more intelligible. But here we are. Speaking of wineries, we have a great topic on tap today. For those who have not seen it, you may want to take heed of a potential spoiler alert. But yes. We're gonna talk about some Star Trek Picard.
We are. Season 2 wrapped up quite a while ago, and for those of you who haven't seen it, like Bill said, this is going to be a spoiler-filled episode, so you probably want to just skip right ahead to the amazing outtake that we did already, and you'll enjoy that. But we're going to talk Season 2 of Picard. We're going to talk about all the things we liked, if there was anything that we didn't like, what we're looking forward to seeing in the future, and I, for one, had a fantastic time watching Season 2, and I'm looking forward to the discussion, buddy.
I had a fantastic time watching Season 2, although it does strike me as two very different seasons mixed into one. Yes. Something that we will talk about in just a bit. Suffice it to say that it is going to be a pretty epic conversation, because you've got Q in the mix. You've got some alternate timeline stuff in the mix. You've got some exploration of the human mind stuff in the mix.
Yes,
but if we did that with you, it would be a very short episode.
Very short conversation. I mean, we'd be done already. Bye. So Halloween is coming, and that means some pretty special stuff could be coming your way from Science Division.
Absolutely. All this month, they've been posting their daily Tribble Halloween cosplay photos on their social media, and you definitely got to give them a follow to check this out. They're just so much fun. Plus, keep in mind the giant silver limited edition Tribble is more than halfway sold out already. At this rate, they could be gone by year's end, and you definitely want to get yours now because once they're gone, no more of the giant silver Tribbles will be imported from the Tribble homeworld.
Aw. Well, plus, did we also mention that the Tribbles are interactive? Yep, the Science Division Tribble has its own app that you can use to control the Tribble. It's not necessary to have it, but it is a lot of fun to make it scream at people like incredibly awesome podcast co-hosts. Fret not, however, that's right, I said it. Everyone except Bill knows. That's right, you guessed it. Tribbles are not dangerous, my friend.
Yeah. But you should get your Tribble today. Head on over to sciencediv.com right now to pick up one of the galaxy's first interactive Tribbles for your very own. Plus, while you're there, check out their new and improved shop accessory section where you can get all kinds of Science Division gear like mugs or tank tops, just like the one Dan is wearing right now. Or since, autumn is here in the US, maybe even a nice snuggly warm sweatshirt to keep yourself warm on these crisp fall days that we're having right now.
Science Division. Trouble's never been this fun, and we thank our friends at Science Division for sponsoring this week's episode.
As always, we want to take this moment to thank our friends at FanSets for being the presenting sponsor of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network.
Yeah, absolutely we do, man. It's mid-October, and that means that there are some new pins coming your way from FanSets, and they are really beautiful. First off, we have the return of the Star Trek Discovery Delta, and as usual, it's available in both pin and magnet form. And the two newest pins from the XL Ships line are available, and believe me, they are absolutely gorgeous. I know because I'm looking at both of mine right now, right in front of me here at my monitors. You can get both the USS Defiant and the USS Voyager right now over at fansets.com. And hey, they just got a bunch of Deltas back in stock, so if you missed your chance to get the Section 31 Delta, the TMP Delta, or the Prodigy Delta, you can get them all right now over at, what's that site again? Oh, that's right, you guessed it, fansets.com.
And those XL ships are so great. Believe us, friends, you're going to want to get your hands on them. So what are you waiting for? These and over 400 other great Star Trek pins are waiting for you over at fansets.com. Look, we say it every single episode. Head on over to fansets.com, put those XL ships and those Deltas that Dan mentioned, put them all in your cart along with some accessories or gift cards or maybe even some more pins. And then at checkout, be sure to enter the special discount code TrekGeeks for 10% off your entire order. That's TrekGeeks in all capital letters with no spaces. And don't forget, when you spend more than $30, you will automatically get free shipping in the United States.
FanSets. Our pins have character, and Oh, Bill, it looks like we have a special transmission coming into Podfleet Command right now. We got to answer this hail, buddy, because our friend Lou from FanSets has some really big news that he wants to share with our listeners right now.
Good morning, Daniel, and hello to the Star Trek universe.
Well, speaking of Star Trek universe, we got some pretty cool new announcements from FanSets coming. Everybody who listens to the show knows that I love the Women of Trek series that you guys have been doing for a couple of years. I absolutely love glitter. I don't wear it, or I'm not going to admit that I wear it, but I do love it. And we have something very big on the way from FanSets, which is kind of related to the Women of Trek. So why don't you let us know what's coming very soon from you guys?
The Women of line is kind of being absorbed over to, for really good reasons, to our new universe of Trek lines, which will encompass all characters, all, aliens, creatures. It'll be all over the place. It'll allow us to expand the art abilities of what we've done with the Women of Trek line. And you and Bill have had a chance to see 5 of the newest ones coming. And they're just absolutely outstanding. I mean, they will be moving in. We'll be moving slowly out of doing micro crew characters and replacing it with this line.
Yeah,
that's not to say we won't still do an occasional micro crew character, but this will be the main focus going forward for characters.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm a big fan of the micro crew pins, but I love these. And as you mentioned, Bill and I have had a chance to take a look at the first 5, and they really are spectacular. I'm guessing that the first one is going to be the iconic Captain Kirk. Is that correct?
Yeah, how can you start anything in Star Trek without having the first face on the Star Trek Mount Rushmore,
Right.
which is Captain Kirk. So that's why we're leading off with him. We're touching many of the different series with the first 5, and there's that is the first 5 of 30 new characters that we have in art and in process right now.
Unbelievable. And I got to tell you, the detail, as always, with your pins, Lou, is fantastic. You got the great image of Kirk with the captain's braids encircling the pin. And also one of the ones that's going to be my all-time favorite is you've got a wonderful Captain Cisco pin that's in art right now that looks fantastic. And what I like so much about this one is the circle that he's in. Part of the circle looks like baseball stitching, because we know how big a fan of baseball it is. So as usual, you and John have taken great care in the detail and what you're going to be showing with all of these pins.
Well, thank you. And we pride ourselves on our originality. Hardly anything we do comes out of a style guide. It's all original art. And this allows us to not just make the character, but step into what makes the character. And that's, you picked up on the baseball. There'll also be stuff on the back of the pin that will be a little more commemorative to what we're doing with the universe of Trek. So good grab and good catch on seeing that right out of the gate.
Oh, no, I think it's great. I think the other ones that are going to be coming out are the first 5 that you mentioned will be coming soon. We're going to have Captain Rios, of course, from Star Trek Picard. We're also going to have Nurse Chapel from Strange New Worlds. So that's a beautiful pin as well. And also one that really caught my attention is you're going to have the 2 Cetacean Ops beluga whales, Kamolo and Matt, with a very cool delta, which is the actual delta for the cetaceans. I think that's really a great one as well. So we got some really great stuff coming from you guys, and I'm sure that the quality is going to be just like all of the other things that you have put out over the years. Can you tease us with any other special things that'll be coming out in the near future over at FanSets?
We're really going hard, as everyone can tell, with the deltas done right initiative. We've kind of hit our mark with getting 2 deltas out a month.
Mm-hmm.
With manufacturing 5,000 of these at a time, that creates some hurdles. We may have 1 or 2 weeks where we have to skip. We'll have other Star Trek product, but it's still a crapshoot in manufacturing and delivery. So, but we've got the TNG Delta, which is highly anticipated. We did run into a bit of a manufacturing issue when we received them. Part of the points on the Delta were not sunk into the black outer casing, and we had to essentially scrub 5,000 pieces of magnets and pins that we just. There's other people that would release it, and we won't. And that slowed us down probably 2 or 3 weeks, as we had to go back and get the entire order rebuilt. We had, if that wouldn't have been the case, those would have already been on street. We would have hit our October delivery that we wanted to, that we talked about in Vegas. It's going to push us back. We might have an outside shot at the end of October, but more realistically, it's going to be early November.
And that's cool. I mean, it's worth the wait. I mean, you guys have done that before. I remember the Dr. Flox pin, the gloves that he was wearing weren't the right color. You sent the whole batch back. And that's because you guys are big fans like we are, and you're dedicated to the product. And I'm sure it'll be worth the wait. I can't wait for that TNG Com badge, man.
Well, our customers hold us to very high standards. We try as hard as we can as mass producing these things. You have to remember, we're not making 25 of these with master prop people in Hollywood. We're having to bring it to mass market, and that create, it's not a resin cast. We can't do a metal resin pin. So to make them right, it's a process. And I know we've been very aggressive. I'm not sure anyone has ever rolled out deltas like we have for customers that are officially licensed. So
Sure.
it that takes up a lot of time, and it's one reason why we're really streamlining down to 3 or 4 prime products to get out there. So the other thing is, and then we probably have 25. We'll have a bunch of more deltas out before the end of the year, but we probably have 25 in the hopper going right now, and we are working on the lower deck section 31. We've got to get sign off from creators on taking something that was animated and bringing it real.
Sure.
It's not something where we guess and then deliver it. There's many channels in this river that have to be touched before it can be on the website for sale.
No, it makes perfect sense, man. And, as long as it takes, we know that we're going to get a great product. Do you have any type of timeline for the universe of Trek pins, or is that still just because you got so much going on, it's still up in the air a little bit?
I think we might have Kirk available in December. We will have a holiday pin, which if we get through final approval, this is the first anyone's heard this, will be Holiday Murph. And it'll be it's a beautiful pin. We have, because that's also a Nickelodeon show, there's 2 touches of licensing that has to go through. Sure. With Nickelodeon and CBS. So, but we're hopeful to have the Holiday Murph pin this for the holiday season. I think we'll have Kirk out in December, and then we also have 5 more ships to our other leg of the chair, which will be the XL ship line coming. We just released the Voyager and the Defiant, and we'll see the Titan, we'll see the Enterprise D, and we'll have some surprises coming for that as well.
That's great, man.
So,
that is a lot of stuff on the way. As always, your stuff is awesome. We love you guys. We love the product that you put out. Thanks as always for being the official sponsor here on the Trek Geeks Podcast Network. It's always good to catch up with you, buddy, and we will talk to you very soon.
Absolutely, Daniel. We couldn't be prouder to be part of your network. It's an honor for us. You guys are the sunlight in the Star Trek universe, and we love you guys.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. We love you guys too, and we will talk to you very soon.
All right, Daniel. Thank you.
All righty.
Well, here we are, the main segment of this week's Trek Geeks. And of course, for anyone who hasn't seen Star Trek Picard Season 2, we want to give you a spoiler warning. We're going to talk about the whole season and details throughout the season. So if you have not watched it, stop now, unless you don't care, and you can keep going.
Black alert. Black alert.
Or red alert, or spoiler alert, or whatever alert you want to call it. But you should stop here if you don't want to be spoiled, because we're going to do it.
I sit and have conversations with you all day, so I'm spoiled.
Wow, what do you need?
I don't know. I thought you were going to say you're spoiled like meat that's been in the sun all day, but that's okay.
Wow, this really took a turn. I was going to say more like cheese that's past its date.
There you go. Or pretty similar.
Yogurt or whatever.
I'm very excited about this conversation.
You probably are more than I, because Star Trek Picard Season 2 elicits a lot of different reactions from a lot of different people. So let's start with yours as a reaction of the season overall. What did you think?
I thought it was phenomenal.
Really?
I really liked a lot of the things they did. They took a lot of chances, and I, for one, thought they worked well. A lot of people have given some negative comments towards Picard Season 1 and its slowness and everything, and I totally agree with it. I enjoyed Picard Season 1 because it was something new that we had been waiting for after the announcement from Sir Patrick, so I enjoyed it. But it did have some slow moments, but I thought that Season 2 kicked off with a huge bang, and I think it carried for most of the season. There were some parts of the season that got a little in the weeds and got into some very divisive topics, which we'll get into, I'm sure. But for the most part, Q and Guinan and the Borg and the Confederation. I love all kinds of aspects like that. You know how I love the mirror universe and things like that. So the first couple of episodes just absolutely blew my mind, and it continued pretty much through the whole season. I really enjoyed a lot of the things that they did.
I come at it from a different perspective. I didn't love season 2. There are elements about it that I absolutely love. And I think that the first 2 episodes show an incredible amount of promise. But I think the subsequent 8 episodes, at least for me, show a season that really didn't gel together. It was like 3 separate story ideas that didn't really form a unified story.
Mm-hmm. I can totally agree with that and understand that. And I do remember at one point, like for example, let's talk about one quick thing to your point real quick. There's one episode where they're back in time in our time in the 21st century, and Raffi and Seven are being chased by the police, and they're in a police cruiser driving around, and they're driving around for like 15 minutes, and a complete waste of time for an episode of them driving around when there could be so much more storytelling going on. So it had its moments of complete disjointedness. But at the same time, like you said, the first couple of episodes were incredible and had tremendous promise for the whole season.
That particular aspect didn't bother me with them in the police car, because I thought there was enough there to propel the story. What did bother me was we went from the story about Q and Picard and them being in sort of this alternate timeline to an examination of Picard's mind that involved his relationship with his father and ultimately the suicide of his mother, to trying to make sure the Mars launch happened on time, to trying to stop what amounts to a new version of the Borg. There was 4 completely competing story ideas there, and none of them really, for me, came together well. Independently stories, I thought they were all fine. Yeah. But there was nothing that really bound the season together cohesively for me.
I haven't looked at it in that aspect. And when you say that, you're absolutely right. Now, some of the aspects of the storylines, plural, were absolutely phenomenal. Let's talk about the first and second episode real quick. I'll say right off the bat, the new Stargazer is one of the sexiest and most amazing starships I have ever seen in Star Trek. Yeah. It is absolutely gorgeous. I love that Rios was captain. I thought it was a great opening to the show. It was fantastic. And we had this new threat, and the new threat, the special effects with the new threat and that opening in space and what comes out of it are just unbelievable. And then we see this new Borg Queen, and that's pretty awesome. But it all ends when the Stargazer self-destructs and takes out the entire fleet with it. But oh, boom, Picard's back in his house. And this is what I really loved, is we got the return of John Delancey as Q in this season of Picard. That, I think, is my favorite aspect of this entire season. I said it before, I've got a huge man crush on John Delancey, especially as an older Q. I thought that he was absolutely amazing in this role. It was great to see this closure, because we've talked about before how Q is kind of a character that, you know, it wasn't the greatest character in TNG. But for him to be able to have this final chapter with Picard, I thought was great. And Delancey is a class act. If anybody has not seen the video of their final shooting scene together, which actually wasn't the end of the episode, it was when Picard and Q were in that like
the solarium
porch area, the solarium. That was their final scene together. And after the take, John Delancey gave a speech, and it's just absolutely wonderful. And I recommend anybody go check it out on YouTube.
My big problem with the Q storyline was not that Q was in it. There wasn't enough Q throughout the season. He was in the second episode pretty heavily. He was in the last episode fairly heavily, with a couple of pop-ins throughout the rest of the season, but not much. For a season that was really teased as sort of Q takes Picard on this journey, there was not enough Q. And I think that's a huge failing of this season.
And I think that that's interesting, that as a character that wasn't seen very much in TNG, had a huge following and a lot of people loved him. We've talked about how he wasn't the greatest character, and then he shows up for this final showing in season 2, and you're absolutely right. He was great in the beginning. He was phenomenal in the end. And in the middle, he had a couple of scenes where his powers weren't working, and he was yelling at young Guinan. I totally see that, but I am able to kind of shrug that aside and focus on the big scenes with Q that just really were some tugs at the heartstrings and some great acting by both Delancey and Sir Patrick.
I don't disagree with that. I just think that there needed to be more of it and plugged into the actual plot. If kind of like Tapestry, Q guides him on this journey and checks in at various points throughout the way to torment, I think you've got a very different season. I think there's a very different dynamic. And I think it would have been more in line with what I expected, and certainly I'm sure others. Plus, I think that it ultimately makes Q's ending at the end of the season a much more impactful thing.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you this. It's something that I've thought about several times since the season ended. We all know that they went to this alternate timeline and Q wanted Picard to realize his inner demons and deal with them. And that would allow him to get the forgiveness or the redemption and return them back to the regular timeline where everything is fine. With the admission of Q at the end of the series, at the end of the season, that he has, he's always cared for Picard, this, that, and the other thing. If Picard did not get what Q wanted him to get at the end of the season, would Q have let things stay the way they were, or if he still would have plucked them out of that alternate reality? If he cared for Picard the way he says he did?
That's a great question. I think that ultimately he would have made his intent known, because he always did.
Yeah.
It's always at the beginning of a Q episode where you wonder why the hell he's there. And it's at the end of the episode you kind of go, oh, yeah, okay. Mm-hmm. Whether it's to put humanity on trial or to take a young female Q back to the Continuum to train her, or to teach Jean-Luc a lesson in Sherwood Forest. I think ultimately that part of it would have been resolved somehow. Mm-hmm. Okay. I just think he needed to be a little more present.
Yeah, I totally, and too much John Delancey is not enough John Delancey.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So I totally get that. But when I've thought about it, I'm like, okay, he's dying. He cares about Jean-Luc. If Jean-Luc didn't figure it out, was he just going to leave him there for him and the rest of the crew to suffer? Or would he have used that final power to tell him what he was hoping would happen and then snap him back to the regular timeline?
I think he knows Picard well enough to know Picard would figure it out, because he's a borderline god. He knows Picard. He knows what he's about. Q could always skip ahead and see if Picard would figure things out anyway, because he can be any place, anytime. True. So I don't know that that's necessarily as big a factor, because ultimately it's about that relationship with Jean-Luc.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Which is one of the highlights of the season. I will say one of the things that I did not like is one of the things I teased about at the very beginning, and that's the whole issue with what's Picard's going on in his mind. And we find out now, after so many years of TNG in the movies and Picard season 1, of all these things that happened to him that traumatized him as a kid, is what keeps him from getting in relationships and this, that, and the other thing. And I kind of thought that was kind of a forced topic for the season of what was going on in Picard's mind. And I wasn't sure it really fit in with what we know about the man up until this point.
I don't disagree one bit. I think that while there are parts of this examination that I think are helpful, ultimately I don't think it's framed very well. And I don't want to sound like I'm dogging on Picard season 2, because I really don't mean to. Mm-hmm. I didn't hate the season. I do think that there are a lot of missteps, though. Ultimately, I didn't not like it, but I didn't love it. And I actually really enjoyed season 1. If you take a look at his father being painted as a complete Luddite, somebody who eschews technology at every turn, I have a problem with them flashing back to his childhood and it looking like, I don't know, the 1800s. Yeah. Because that just doesn't seem right to me.
Right. No, I agree. Yeah. The whole, keeping the vineyard historical or whatnot. But let's talk about what really did work for me. And that's just at the beginning. And unfortunately, we didn't get enough of it. And that's the Confederation. I loved the Confederation.
Well, but before you go there, let's stay on the whole Picard past thing, because I don't want to get too far away from this.
Okay.
The parts of it that work are examining his relationship with his father. The parts of it that don't work is the suicide of his mother.
That was complete out of left field for me. I really was not thrilled with that. I know a lot of people had a problem with the fact that there were no warnings about self-harm at the beginning of that episode.
Yeah.
And and whether that was put in there or not on purpose, it was something that was just, it just seemed like it was, they needed to have something to hinge the entire character of Picard, and I think that was the wrong one. Well, I will say that was aspect of the season that I did not care about.
And there's a whole bunch of questions to be asked there. What of mental health at this time in the future?
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Why did his father essentially lock her away in a room? I think that there's a real deficiency to that storytelling. I think that there's a lot of missteps in that particular storyline, and ultimately I think it drags down that part of the season. You get to this, as we're going to talk about the Confederation in a second, you get this huge ramp up to the Confederation storyline. We're back in 21st century LA, and then all of a sudden the bottom drops out on the season, and we're here in Picard's mind examining what happened in his childhood, and it completely takes the energy away.
It causes kind of like a depressive state for at least 2 episodes.
Absolutely.
And then they throw in the extra stuff with Sung and things like that. And I totally understand what you get, where there's just a lot of confusion and a lot of different storylines going together all at once. But you're absolutely right. That was one thing. The locking in the room. I mean, let's look at Turnabout Intruder, the last episode of TOS. They handle it better than what they did Picard, which takes place 150 years later.
Wow, that's a really great point. Yeah. Or even Dagger of the Mind.
Exactly.
Which has a lot of flaws itself, don't get me wrong.
Well, so does Turnabout Intruder, but they handle it better.
They at least address it.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder, not only did Picard's dad not only hate technology, but did he hate medicine? Did he hate psychology? Did he hate modern science? I think that's a question that I'm left with in watching this season. Yet, in Picard's mind, he presents himself as a therapist.
Right.
Which is, in the future, which is really bizarre.
It is very bizarre. It's very bizarre to lock her in a dungeon.
Yeah.
Like you said earlier, because that's the only thing I can think of. It's the basement, but it's a dungeon.
It really is.
And the whole idea with the key and the brick and the wall and everything like that, that's another thing that was just kind of head scratching to me a little bit. Does it ultimately end up allowing Picard to move on based on everything that he dealt with? Yeah. And that's a good thing, as we saw at the end with Laris. But yeah, as I'm sitting here discussing things with you, I still love the season, but there are definitely parts of it that make me scratch my head more.
It's a part that really I don't like. I don't mind the season overall. I'm not a huge fan of it, but if I examine that part of it, it really just drags it down. But anyway, let's go to the Confederation, because I derailed you a second ago.
Oh, that's okay.
You're right. You do love the Mirror Universe stuff. I loved the way they forced us into this Confederation.
Yeah.
Because we're all very disoriented. Especially Picard, because there he is with his man android Harvey. And in a room full of skulls.
Room full of skulls, which, man, that happened. I was so excited when I saw that scene that I actually did not hear Q say that the first skull was Gul Dukat. And when I rewatched it, I got even more excited, because it was just incredible. And then to actually see the skulls and actually be right next to them in Chicago for Mission Chicago was pretty cool, because they had them all there. I thought that was one of the highlights of the season, the Confederation. It was different from the Mirror Universe in a way that I really liked. They had a lot of great moments in the Confederation. Of course, Annika is president. They talk Cisco. They talk O'Brien. You hear a whole bunch of names smattered about while they're talking about different things. And I thought that really worked. And then of course we get the Borg Queen, and Annie Wershing played a phenomenal Borg Queen, possibly the best Borg Queen out of any of the ones that we have seen over the years. I thought she was absolutely phenomenal. And for part of it, she couldn't really do anything because it was just her torso. But I really liked the aspects of how evil Picard was, and it really worked for me. I really liked seeing that aspect. And then when he had to pretend to be that evil general, like at Starfleet Academy or the Federation headquarters when he dressed down a soldier, I thought that was really great. It was very cool to see. I was a little kind of like, okay, I don't think it would have taken this long for security to really get involved when he wasn't assassinating the Borg Queen in front of all of the people that looked a lot like the people from the first episode of TNG when they were on trial, but I'm not going to really go into that. But I thought it was great. I loved Agnes Girardi in those scenes in the Confederation. I just thought it was great. But then, of course, we did have one aspect that not a lot of people liked, and that was the death of Elnor. That was
hard.
That was hard. It was unexpected. And I gotta say, I did not agree with Raffi at all in her reaction to Jean-Luc about that. I really didn't. I had a real problem with the way that she was. Yeah. I'm like, come on. Yeah, it could have happened to anybody. Now you're gonna now blame all of this on Picard when he's trying to get us out of this mess. I really did not like that.
I get it though, because she's already lost her child.
I know.
And now here she is. She's lost her, or essentially her adopted kid, for want of a better word, and all because of what's gone on. Yeah, it was a bit of an overreaction, but I mean, that's what grief and that's what death does to us to some extent. I get it, even though it was misplaced, and I can't really fault her for that. The whole idea of the Elnor hologram later is weird, but we'll get there. I want to say that there were elements of the coming back to or being thrust back into the alternate timeline where the Confederation is, that kind of remind me a little bit of Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home, in the way they constructed some of these scenes, in the way that our characters knew exactly what was going on, but no one else around them did, how they had to try to fit in to advance, to where they needed to be. I thought that some of that storytelling was done exceptionally well.
Yes.
And it was fun to watch.
It was a lot of fun to watch.
That whole escape to the La Sirena, that whole sequence in that entire episode is just fantastic from start to finish in all of the aspects.
And tense.
Yeah.
And that's what it worked. The tension worked, even though there was humor thrown in about trying to get the frequencies set up and Girardi dropping her swear words and such, which I won't say here, of course.
No.
It worked. And I really liked it. And that's where we get to see the Confederation badges used as lethal weapons, literally. Let's slice some throats with those bad boys. I really thought it worked. And unfortunately, the Confederation aspect of season 2, that was it. Once they escape, they go around the sun, which was some great special effects, by the way, and slingshot back to the past. That was it for the Confederation. That was really too bad because it was pretty awesome. I'm not going to lie. I loved it.
There are elements of Mirror Mirror in this episode. There are elements of Voyage Home. There are elements of Generations to some extent and the way Picard and Guinan interact. But I think that a lot of that storytelling, if I take out all of the Picard's family stuff, I think for me, this season works a whole lot better.
I agree. That's a good point, man. Absolutely a good point. One more thing I want to say on the Confederation. It's really too bad that Eaglemoss doesn't seem to be around anymore, because if they had done a skulls collection and they could have done different skulls than what we saw in the Confederation, I would have a whole wall full of them, man. It would be pretty awesome. I would be one sick mofo.
Your wife would relegate you to the basement. And deservedly so.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's where Picard's mother went, so I guess I'll have to follow.
Wow. Wow. This just got dark.
Sorry. Very dark. It was dark. There was some dark aspects of the season.
Yeah. I don't know about you, and I'm going to throw this out there, but I didn't once get fooled by the fact that Girardi wasn't going to be the new Borg Queen at all. I knew it from the moment the two of them were in the same room that Agnes was going to be the new Borg Queen.
I knew that as well. At first, when we first saw the new Borg Queen with that cool mask, no idea who it was. But once she shot her, and then when she was being held by security in the chair, and then the Borg Queen was sitting next to her and we're talking in her head, I'm like, okay, here we go. This setting it all up perfectly for her to be the Borg Queen. And while I was excited that she became the Borg Queen and it was kind of cool, I didn't like her look when she became the Borg Queen. I did not like her Girardi as the Borg Queen makeup and
on the finale
and all that. I wasn't very keen on that one at all. Yeah.
Well, I think it was done to demonstrate that she's not the like we'll call it prime timeline Borg Queen.
Right.
That it didn't write over the Borg that we knew. This is kind of a new flavor.
Yeah, and that's another aspect that I really start thinking about, and I can just get lost forever thinking about it. Okay, so she was created back before the split to the Confederation, and she took off and spent 400 years being the Borg Queen that learns about all this stuff that's going on back when things are back to normal. But she's not the Borg Queen that we saw in First Contact. She's not the Borg Queen we saw in Voyager. Right. She's a different Borg Queen. I'm already ready to pass out.
But I think you actually covered it perfectly there. I mean, you actually...
Where was she the whole time?
Well, that's really the thing.
Yeah.
You know, off wherever Borg Queens go.
It's like, okay.
Maybe she was in her Borg palace. I don't know.
Borg palace.
But I mean, you know, there had to be some kind of way to explain why they weren't around. And them showing up, I think probably is explanation of they were off doing whatever they do. And it's interesting I wonder if we're going to find out exactly what they did.
That's something that I was actually going to say. Obviously, they're going to be the gatekeepers for whatever is possibly coming through this rift in space. And I hope that that's not all. I hope that's not, okay, they're going to stand guard there as the new members of the Federation, and we're not going to talk about them again. Are they going to be in season 3 at all? Because if not, it's going to be like, what the heck was that all about?
Alison Pill is not in season 3 of Picard.
No, she's not. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how they deal with that.
I don't think they're going to deal with it. I think there will be, and I could be wrong, but I think there will be some kind of reference as to what happened between then and now, and that's going to be it. I don't think there's going to be a great Borg continuation of the storyline. I really don't. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just don't see it.
I found it very interesting and somewhat questionable that as many times as they've had problems with the Borg, even though Voyager had some of the Borg technology built into their system thanks to 7 of 9, I found it very interesting that the Stargazer and a lot of the fleet of the Federation now uses a lot of Borg technology, which actually allowed the Borg Queen to take over the fleet that much quicker.
Yeah.
I thought that was an interesting aspect. It's like, wow, you're going to allow stuff that you really don't understand. You're just going to use that technology and hope that everything works out okay.
When they wouldn't let 7 join Starfleet.
Exactly. Yeah.
And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, that I thought was very interesting. It strikes me to be, well, you know, you and I work in a field where security vulnerabilities are just part of the daily consideration. And that strikes me as a huge security vulnerability.
Little bit. Yeah, let's just take over everything.
Yeah. I mean, what could this do? What harm could it be? I have a feeling that has to be addressed again somehow. That aspect of it, particularly.
I know that with what we've seen with Picard season 3, it appears that 7 is now a commissioned officer. So maybe there will be some discussion about that. Who knows? I
surely hope so. And well, since you brought it up, let's go there. I mean, 7 essentially gets a field commission to be in command of the Stargazer at that moment. But I believe in the new season, she's a commander aboard the Titan A.
Correct. I believe that's what it is. So not only, I find it very interesting just in the fact that she was not allowed to become a Starfleet officer when they returned from the Delta Quadrant. I thought that was a huge moment.
Yeah.
After everything that she did for Voyager and the crew, and I'm sure Janeway had a lot of the ability to get what she wants done. And I'm sure she really pulled for 7 to become a Starfleet officer, but that just didn't happen. And so she basically became a pirate, which is okay. But now we're going to see her, and she gets, not only did she get a commission right then, she's like captain of the Stargazer instantly, thanks to Picard. And you could tell that she was pretty much digging it.
Arr. Let's go back to the pirate thing.
The pirate thing also in Strange New Worlds. A little spoiler for Strange New Worlds also.
Wow, thanks a lot.
Captain Pike be a pirate. But it's very interesting. And I hope we do get a little bit more backstory into what caused Starfleet to say, no, we're not letting you in. They let Picard still become captain and admiral for how many years after he was Locutus and killed how many people in Battle of Wolf 359? But yet they wouldn't let 7 become a Starfleet.
Dude, he was back in command of the Enterprise at the end of that episode.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, with stuff on his face and staring out the window like, what have I done? But yeah, he got to sit in the captain's chair on the flagship at the end of Best of Both Worlds Part 2.
That's right.
After complete assimilation.
Yes, and complete death and destruction of pretty much the whole fleet.
Yeah.
Yeah, but 7, no. Sorry.
Double standard, much?
A little bit. Speaking of great female characters in this season.
Yes.
Let's talk about young Guinan for a second.
Okay.
I don't know how you feel about her. I loved this young Guinan. I thought she was pretty cool.
I thought she was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
I thought there was a bit of a plot hole.
About how come she didn't know Picard?
Yep.
I haven't heard that about a zillion times since the season took place.
And I get it. I mean, this is a slightly different timeline, but she met him in the 1800s.
And she also knew something was wrong when the Enterprise C came through the rift and that timeline got altered. She has this intuition. But yes, you're absolutely. Now, I know that there's a whole bunch of discussion out there. And I think we've had discussion with some people about, even though it's the 1800s, this is why this, that, and the other thing. I'm not even going to try to delve into it because I'm just going to cause myself to fall into a coma. So I'm not going to worry about it.
I'm not going to try to find a canon explanation for it.
Yeah.
I'm just going to call it a miss.
Yeah, okay, that's a good one. Yeah,
it's a miss I can live with.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not upset about it. I don't think it breaks anything. Ultimately, I think that Guinan serves a purpose in this storyline.
She does,
and I think she's an amazing addition, both in current day. By current day, I mean the Prime Trek timeline that we're used to, and in the past.
Yes, I agree.
Great to see Whoopi again. It was great to see the new Guinan.
Ito. I'm not even going to pronounce her last name, but I know Ito is her first name.
And it was just wonderful all around.
Agayeri, maybe, possibly.
Sure, let's go with
I don't know. She had some guns on her arms. I would not want to mess with that woman. She was awesome. I thought it was a little quirky, but I loved the nostalgia of there being a 10 forward on 10 forward
I loved
Ave or whatever. I thought it was kind of neat, and it was so great. It was so great when he went down in that bar in the past, and there she was. And I'm like, oh my God, that's Guinan. You got to be kidding me. And she even did the hands thing. She even did the claws.
Yeah.
I thought that was great. A great callback. It was very strange how they were able to call Q. That was loud and very, it sounded like you. But it was weird to see it on TV.
Yes, all around. Ultimately, I thought they were a series of scenes that worked pretty well. I thought that she and Patrick Stewart had amazing chemistry on screen.
Yes.
Plus, indeed. It was also great to see Patrick and Whoopi together because it was like having old friends reunited, because that's really what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And it brought me a lot of joy. There was enough fan service to keep it interesting, but yet enough new stuff to propel the plot and the characters, and I'm all for that.
And I believe that this was genuine and happened. And the whole idea of Guinan coming back was when Sir Patrick was on The View a couple years ago talking about Picard season 1. And he said that he talked to Alex and wanted to invite her to come back. And she said yes. Yeah. So they were able to write her in, and she was in 2 episodes. And I thought it was fantastic.
I loved it.
Loved it. Absolutely loved it.
I want to talk about the criminal underuse of Issa Briones in this season. Because we see Soji for a fleeting moment at the beginning.
Very fleeting. And
then we see her new character at various times throughout the season. And it didn't work for me. I wanted more of Soji. I thought that it would have made more sense if Soji had been part of the team that came back.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that would have added a new element. But ultimately, she was given something to do. It was fine, but I didn't love it.
I didn't love it either. I thought it was great with her, the banter back and forth with her and Girardi when they were with the Deltan delegation at the beginning, like you said. I really thought that was great. I kind of thought, even though I enjoyed it, I kind of thought the whole idea of her being a descendant of a Sung was kind of like really like thrust into the storyline, and it didn't really fit all that well. Although, and this condition that she had, and how Sung actually ended up being the big emperor, like leader of the Confederation based on what took place. It was very confusing. I didn't really think it was awful, but I didn't love it.
Right.
And like you said, she was drastically underutilized because she's a very powerful performer. When she did have scenes, she did the best that she could with them. But I think that was I do think, in addition to the mother issues that Picard had, I think that the whole Sung and daughter thing was a little bit of a miss as well.
I do love the ending for her character in this episode.
I do like that too.
I love the return of Will Wheaton, because that brings me joy to know that he essentially recruits Corey into the Travelers. Yep. It's good to know that they kind of oversee the Watchers.
I got to say, that's a fantastic tie-in to the original series. I loved that whole idea of the supervisors, and they had the same type of transporter effect, and I thought that was really great. I will think it was a little bit of a stretch for the woman who played Laris to all of a sudden be one of the supervisors. I'm okay with it, though, because the whole idea of tying those two species together the way that they did, I thought was brilliant. Even though we only found out about it and knew about it for like 30 seconds before Wesley took off with her. I loved it. I thought it was great. I know a lot of people were like, "Oh my God, they just had to throw Wesley in so that they would get that aspect." I thought it was great. I loved seeing him again, even if it was just for a few minutes.
I thought it was great to find a way to tie all these different ideas in Star Trek together. And that's a Star Trek series I would watch the hell out of. The sort of the Assignment Earth. What if there was, originally Assignment Earth was a backdoor pilot to a new series by Gene Roddenberry about Gary 7. What if this led to a new kind of Assignment Earth with, maybe a rotating series of Watchers? I think that would be great. Awesome. Well, it'd kind of be a little bit like Quantum Leap, I guess, but
which they just rebooted anyway. So
right.
No, I think that's a great idea. And as a matter of fact, I've always loved the idea of what the supervisors from Assignment Earth were like. As a matter of fact, the Khan series of novels, the trilogy, Gary 7 is extremely involved in that entire first novel, and I think part of the second. And there's also another Gary 7 novel out there from the old pocketbook Star Trek novels that is excellent as well. And I've always thought that was a missed opportunity that NBC didn't pick that up when Gene proposed it back in the day. I thought it would have been pretty great.
Well, I mean, who knows why? Maybe it didn't work for them. Network suits are network suits, and some stuff works and some stuff doesn't. It's amazing that Star Trek got a second pilot, and maybe because nobody ever expected that.
True. Good point. Good point.
Ultimately, I think it would be cool if that was something they re-examined now, even if it were a series of shorts, based on the Watchers. I think that would be awesome.
I think it would be very cool.
I want to know if the Soongs are all clones, because they all look identical to each other.
Yeah.
Whether it's Noonien, or whether it's Arik, or whether it's Alton Inigo, or whether it's Adam, they all are identical, which makes me wonder if they are all clones. And I have this question now because Brent Spiner keeps playing Soongs.
Yeah, that'd be a good question to pose to him at a convention, maybe. And I'm sure that he would have some incredible anecdotes to talk about, because anytime that he's being interviewed, it's pretty funny. But that's a good point. I like the fact that they've been able to bring Brent back as different roles. I think it's starting to stretch a little thin, I will say, because there's been so many of them. I love what they're going to be doing in season 3, though, with what we've seen in the teaser. So I don't want to get into that right now, but that looks pretty cool. But I also like the fact of what they did with tying in the Soongs, because we saw it in Enterprise. When he opens that drawer after everything has gone to hell for him at the end of season 2 of Picard, he opens up that drawer and there's the folder with the Khan initiative, or whatever it's called. I thought that was amazing and a great tie into what we see later with Enterprise.
I do too. I wish that it had been more than just a passing glimpse. I would have liked a little more framework, because that's just the way I am. But because I want them to dive into that lore, no pun intended, even more.
Yep. Get your mind thinking.
Yeah, but it's a question I'm left with now every time we see a Soong. Are they all clones of Adam?
Good
I feel like
question.
I feel like they almost have to be. I do have to say that one of the things that I found funny about this season. So remember the Star Trek experience in Vegas, where you were beamed onto the Enterprise D, and the Klingons were after an ancestor of Picard's to kill them.
Oh, that's right.
And the mission was to escape the Klingons and get back to Las Vegas. Fast forward to Star Trek Picard Season 2, and they have to stop Picard's ancestor from being killed. And so she can complete her mission so that Starfleet and the Federation as we know it can actually take place. And I just had to chuckle a little bit inside because it almost seems like a wink and a nod to the Vegas attraction.
Maybe it was. I found it interesting, that whole aspect of her having to go on that mission, and that the love interest of Rios, that the son is actually the one that comes up with whatever he comes up with after she finds that life form on Europa or wherever it is that they go to. It was amazing that this little group of people in a city of Los Angeles with the millions of people, they all kind of tie together. It's the strings of time or whatever you want to call it, like, butterfly effect or whatever.
Like sands to the hourglass.
Exactly. And speaking of Rios and his love interest, I really was kind of, I get it. I was bummed that he stayed behind. I think he's a great character, and I would have loved to see more of him in the future season of Picard. I understand why he did it, but at the same time, anyone who is involved with any time travel of any kind in any Star Trek series knows you can't do that. The ripple effect of it's bad. It's not good. The Department of Temporal Investigations would be having a field day if they ever found out about this.
I hated that aspect. I'm going to come right out and say it. I did not like it one bit, just because I wanted more for the Rios character.
Yeah.
I thought that it was great to have him as in command of the La Sirena. I loved his character in command of the Stargazer. I wanted him to do more in a Starfleet sense. And I almost feel like we got cheated out of more Rios by having him stay behind.
I absolutely agree. One of the greatest aspects of the character, which of course people are going to say, well, they shouldn't be doing that in the 24th century, is Captain Rios on the Stargazer chewing on a stogie. I just think that was the coolest thing, seeing him on the bridge of that ship with that cigar in his mouth. But you're right. I understand he finally found what he wanted. He found the love that he wanted, and he's happy. You're right. I want more Rios, and now it's not. They did have. It was interesting is people have pointed out that there was a picture of him and his family at the bar when Picard was there. Of course, we didn't focus in on it, but people have pointed it out since then. It's just too bad because he was a great character. He really was a good character in season 1 and season 2, and I think it was a lost opportunity for another potential character off on their own in future adventures of Star Trek, whatever they may be.
Yeah, I mean, so Rios stays behind. Elnor's killed. Jurati becomes the new Borg Queen. We're kind of left with Raffi and Seven, and we know we'll see them in Picard season 3, but I kind of wanted the whole gang. Well, and Soji, is off on her tour of the galaxy.
Right.
I kind of wanted that core unit to come back for all of, because we've seen them for 20 episodes. Does it mean I disliked it? No, it was kind of what I hoped for, and that's my disappointment.
I'm disappointed also, but also knowing that they had this plan for the 3 seasons. So they knew back when they were putting this all together that season 3 was going to be the big TNG reunion. So maybe they decided they need to do some of these things and only bring back a couple. It seems that Seven has now become an integral part of Star Trek, modern day Star Trek with the series. So I understand her. I understand because she's in the relationship with Raffi. I kind of understand why nobody else is coming back, and so why they wrote them out the way that they did, because it's all going to be focusing in on Geordi and Deanna and Worf and all the rest of the crew. They still could have room for the other characters to be in season 3 a little bit.
Absolutely.
So it is disappointing, but at the same time, I kind of get where they're going. They want this to be the actual send off of the TNG crew. So they're going to focus in on that as much as they can.
One of the things I've wondered about this season, and this is just a recent thing that's come into my brain is, well, a lot of it doesn't take place in space. A lot of it is earthbound.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if a lot of that was to trim the budget down to use some of those savings for season 3.
Good point. Yeah.
I don't know if that's the case. That's just me thinking.
Mm-hmm.
But I often wonder if that was part of the decision to have as much earthbound story as we did.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very good point. It was very special effect heavy in the first episode or two, a little bit thrown in the rest of the season. Yeah, that's a very good point, and I wouldn't be surprised. But then again, with the budgets that they have with the modern day Trek, with like Discovery and what they're doing, I'm not sure that they really care.
Well, I think they care on some level because bringing back the entire cast of Next Generation is not an inexpensive proposition.
Yeah, that's true. Absolutely.
Overall, I do like the way that this season wrapped up. I'm glad that Picard has found a little bit of happiness.
Yes. I want to take a couple of steps back from that happiness when he gets it and talk about the last scenes with Q.
Okay.
Because you want to talk about a 52-year-old guy at that moment, at that time that it was aired, crying like a baby. I was bawling at that scene. I just thought that chemistry, Picard has hated this guy for so long because he's been such a pain in the ass. And there he is saying he's not alone and hugs him. And the reaction from Q is just one that it was like I couldn't breathe. It was so powerful for me. For someone that has not been a huge Q fan also, I just thought it was extremely emotional and powerful. And I absolutely love the fact that Q did not die alone like he always thought he was going to.
I'm really kind of fascinated by that, and I'm glad you said all that because I didn't have that reaction. I didn't find it emotional at all for me. And I'm not saying that's good or bad or indifferent. I'm not saying that you're wrong because it's the reaction you had, and I respect and I love that for you. But for me, it was okay.
Okay.
I thought it was two actors who were, still so amazing at this phase of their career, but ultimately I didn't feel it. And that's
and
okay.
I got to say, that's one of the things that I also love so much about it. It's these two actors.
Yeah.
And this scene and that scene, we talked about before, when it's just the two of them sitting there talking, that was amazing too. You got to finally understand that Picard, or that Q, cares about Picard and always has. And then you get this farewell, and the extra gift that Q decides to give Picard when he snaps his fingers that last time by bringing Elnor back, I thought was very gracious of him and a little bit unexpected, but a little expected at the same time, because I know a lot of people were really pissed that he was just dead in a little photon torpedo tube on the ship or something like that. Yeah. I really thought that scene with the two of them was one of the most touching of the season, and it really got me in all the right places. It really did.
Interesting. I had that reaction in Nepenthe in season 1 when Picard and Riker and Troy all hug. I was reduced to tears. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I didn't have it for this, and maybe it's mainly because of the adversarial relationship they've had. I've never looked at it as sort of, well, it comes across as a little parent-child in Picard season 2, with Q sort of being the godlike. And even refers to Picard sort of in a childlike way, and it didn't hit me, and that's cool.
You just said that, and I wasn't going to bring this up, but I will now because you said it. Sir Patrick Stewart, at the age he's at, reminds me so very much of my dad when he was getting towards the end of his life. A lot. Yeah. The way that his mannerisms, his voice, because his voice is different than it was on TNG. Sure. And it reminds me a lot of my dad. So a lot of the scenes that he's in talking, especially these end scenes when he's showing the love, because I think it really hit me hard as well. And I think that's why it played such an emotional part on me.
And I think that's fantastic that it touches that part of your relationship. These things hit different people different ways. And, like there are elements of The Visitor that level me for different reasons than other people. And I totally respect that. Yep. But you are correct to say that both of these actors are clearly at the top of their game in those scenes.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Because they're phenomenal.
Yep, they absolutely are. And as you said, and we kind of went off on a tangent for a little while, we get to see Picard happy at the end. He's going to take the chance that he's never going to take before, that he never would have taken before. We're left, we don't see that, but we're left pretty much knowing that's what's going to happen, the way that he is talking to Laris. And I think it's great. I was really happy at the beginning of the season when it looked like that's what she wanted, and he was right there, just about ready to say yes, and then pulled back. And that was really disappointing. And to see it at the end, like it looks like he's ready to take that chance, I thought it was great. I thought it was a good ending for the season.
It's interesting that this is a man who has, as he says in Nemesis, negotiated treaties between implacable enemies, initiated first contact with all kinds of alien worlds, and his final frontier turns out to be happiness.
Yeah,
and being able to reconcile that happiness based on everything that's happened in his childhood. That's a fascinating examination. And I at least appreciate the way that they actually let him have some, because
Finally.
he could have been tortured still.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen glimpses of it with Darren in one episode of TNG and then in Insurrection, but we never saw anything really of any substance. So, and we still really haven't, but we have that idea that that's what's going to happen based on how the season ended.
Well, and I think we, like he, know that those were temporary.
Yeah.
Nella Darren could be transferred at any time, and in fact was.
Or killed.
Or whatever. And Picard, knew that he wasn't going to be staying on the Baku homeworld with Anish.
Right.
So, yeah, maybe I'll come back someday. Yeah, I'm not going back.
I'll call you. Yeah, no, I won't.
Call me. Ultimately, if you had to give this season a rating out of 10, what would you give it? And I'm putting you on the spot because we didn't talk about this.
Yeah, I loved so many aspects of it, and even the things that we've talked about that weren't the best aspects. I'd got to give it a solid 8.
Really?
7.5 to 8. Yeah, there were so many aspects of it that just get me so giddy and happy and emotional at the same time that I'm willing to overlook some of the flaws that it has.
Okay.
What about you?
I'm going to give it a 4.
Really?
Yeah.
Ouch. Okay.
It's dark.
Yeah.
Through the middle, it's pretty dour. And it just, none of the storylines work well together.
Let me ask you this. What would you have given Star Trek Picard season 1?
Probably a good 7.
Okay. So let's see. I'd probably give Picard season 1, I'd 6 or a 7. So, and I think season 2 was better than season 1. So yeah, I'd have to go with a 7.5 or 8. 4 is, wow, that's very surprising.
For me, it's season 1 is a great examination of a man with a regret. Mm-hmm. Because we never see our Starfleet captains have regret. They're on to the next thing, right. And it's, to boldly go where no one has gone before. Mm-hmm. At that phase of Picard's life, he's tortured by some of his decisions. And it was interesting to see that manifest itself. And ultimately the way it resolved.
Right.
He gets closure for Data. And I think that's really what made it really kind of important.
That is special, yeah.
Because it was truly special. This, it's 4 different story ideas that don't really ever gel together. Mm-hmm. And while I like aspects of it, and I love the performances by a lot of people, the season on the whole just doesn't work for me. I don't hate it, but I'm not going to rank it up there with season 1. I just can't.
Okay. No, that makes sense. No, I think that's what's great about the fact that we have these discussions. There's so many aspects of it that I loved that they kind of overshadow the things that I didn't, which makes me appreciate the season more, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, and what's kind of weird is there's a lot of aspects of season 1 that I think don't work. And I did the same thing.
Sure.
There's a lot of things that I do, like that Data, the whole Data thing is just incredible, especially the last episode of season 1. Even it looks like it didn't work the same for you in season 2 as it did for me in season 1, but that's okay. I mean, it's still something that it's going to be on TV. We're going to watch it.
That's it.
Yeah, because it's Star Trek, baby.
Well, I mean, there are episodes and seasons of shows that I dislike more. Mm-hmm. 4 out of 10 is not terrible. It's not awesome, but it's not terrible. But ultimately, it's Picard, and I'm going to watch it because I love Jean-Luc Picard. I want to see the rest of his journey.
I know something that I want to do, and we can do it as a series because there's only 10 episodes a season, and there's going to be 30 episodes total. So it'll just be like a little bit more than a regular season of the old TNG Voyager. We're going to have to do a see it or skip it Picard. because I want to hear what you would say for see it or skip it for individual episodes.
Well, but that's the problem, though. They're all see it because you can't watch one and not know what's going on in the other.
Oh, that's true, because of the whole aspect of it being a season-long arc.
Yeah. So, I mean, whereas episodic, it's much easier to do.
True. That's good.
I'm happy to go through why I think some episodes are hits or misses, but ultimately, I mean, I think you have to see all 30 episodes of Picard because they tell a complete story.
You're absolutely right. And that's one of the things that some people love and some people hate about the new Trek is a lot of it is cinematic in scope in terms that it's an entire season arc, whereas why some people are so excited about Strange New Worlds is because it's Planet of the Week.
Well, and even then, there's an arc that draws a line through that.
Yep.
I still think that all of the new Trek is pretty much see it, even Strange New Worlds, because they tell a story. Even Lower Decks. Right. You know, there are arcs that go through that series that if I miss one, I've missed a piece.
True.
Although I still would argue that all of Lower Decks is a see it.
All of Lower Decks is a see it.
So
absolutely.
So there you have it. We've looked at season 2 Star Trek Picard. We can't wait for season 3.
Boy.
Definitely a total game changer as far as the journeys of Jean-Luc Picard goes. I can't wait to see where we wind up at the end.
It's going to be great no matter what happens. You know, this season was really special. There were some things that I absolutely loved. A lot of people didn't like the darkness. I actually loved the Confederation. I thought it was great. And I'll talk about those skulls until the day I die. So, but yeah, it's going to be very interesting getting the whole family back for a final third season. Or is it? Jonathan Frakes, damn you. But it's going to be fantastic no matter what. And I'll tell you right now, dude, February cannot get here fast enough, but neither can Vegas because you know they're going to have all of them back, and it's going to be a pretty magic moment.
I hope it's going to be all of them because Patrick doesn't always do Vegas.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I'm thinking about when he was there to announce Picard, and I get all chills still.
Oh, giddy.
Giddy.
That's not giddy. That's I can't say what that is without bleeping. But, you know, Dan, another thing we're excited about, in addition to Star Trek Picard Season 3, 5-year mission, the band.
Good Lord, yes.
Who also has 5-year mission, the podcast.
Wow.
Who also has 5-year mission, the albums. It sounded a lot like Spaceballs, and that's okay, because 5-year mission is that good. Get yourself on out to 5yearmission.net. Get all their CDs. Send them to yourself. You know, maybe it's a nice early holiday present for you, because we guarantee you are going to love their music. You've heard it here on Trek Geeks for years. You've heard it on some of the other shows in the network, including 5-Year Mission, the podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts. And become a huge fan of the band as Dan and I are ourselves.
And what was even cooler than just having 5-Year Mission, all kinds of songs, is last week we just had Spock's Brain music because we actually did the episode Spock's Brain. That was really cool. That was very smart on your part, I got to say also, buddy. You know what else I love besides Picard Season 2 and 5-Year Mission, Bill?
My face?
Oh, God, no, not at all. I love Lower Decks. And I love Lower Decks Season 3 in particular, buddy. There have been some great episodes. There have been some great callbacks. There's been some great voice acting, especially in last week's episode. You remember that one. Boimler created a new holodeck adventure where he's Captain Dagger, and he takes the crew on a dangerous and adventure-filled mission to find and take back an important and dangerous device that can literally change the timeline just by playing songs from our favorite band, 5-Year Mission. I mean, I just get chills thinking about it. Check it out. It's Crisis Point 2, Parapharxis. Oh, come on. Am I ever... that's all I'm going to get every single time, isn't it?
No, you've gotten worse.
I thought...
and you've gotten better.
I've gotten better? Thank you.
No, you've gotten better reactions.
Oh.
Where I say, like, that's just terrible. That would be a better reaction than what I just had, which... kind of
this was such a good episode though.
I want to know at one point you start trying with these, because we're almost 8 years in.
Just following my leader, that's all.
Oh no. I don't even do this, so you can't blame this on me.
No, I gotta do something to pick up the podcast.
No, you love to try to deflect. You just own this. They suck.
No, they don't. They're wonderful. You know, all you listeners out there, you can tell us on Twitter how much you love the Farkism. You can buy a shirt over at our store on TrekGeeks.com, and you can get a I'm only here for the Farkism shirt. That's right. I said it. I love Farkisms. Yeah, you can get it.
You love them because you write them.
No, I'm talking about the people wearing the shirt that says that on the shirt because they love them.
I'm going to be convinced that anybody else wearing that shirt probably is being held hostage and needs intervention from law enforcement.
Okay.
Not counting Fark. I mean,
Para
because
Farks,
obviously
people.
he should wear his own shirt with
Right.
himself on it. I mean, that makes sense.
That's a little strange, but that's true. Anyway,
Parafarxis.
5-year mission.net.
Don't forget, you too can support the Trek Geeks Podcast Network, upon which 5-year mission has a podcast, in case you hadn't heard or were not aware, by subscribing to us on Patreon, all kinds of perks, Dan, and a whole bunch of people who help make it happen for us.
Oh, absolutely. We have tons of people over on the Patreon who we are just so thankful for. And right now, we're going to thank our associate producers for the support that they give us. And they are Vikram Bhatt, Brad DeMag, William Edward M. Jr., Patrick Escudero, Andy Fark of the previously mentioned 5-year mission, Kimberly Francis, Jonathan Hamilton, Peter Hong, William Jackson, Ryan Jeffs, John Krikorian, Sean Lynn, Rick Mason, Jamie McGregor, Ross McKinney, Jim McMahon, Aaron Mollenkoff, Helen Reed, Sarah Rutlinger, Tim Robertson, Desi Rogers, Greg Roger, Eric Sakian, Adam Sanders, Tim Serdar, Heather Sohn, Blake Strike, Rick Tatro, Lisa Tomlinson, Ron Robel, and the gracious and wonderful Connie Hutchins, as Bill Belichick would say.
Wow, that's kind of be a really specious joke
All right,
for only a few people.
I'll say it again. And the gracious and wonderful Connie Hutchins.
That is so much better.
Thank you very much.
It gives Connie the kind of attention and recognition that Connie deserves, quite frankly.
Yeah, but she gave me bleep for the whole Mary Poppins thing, so, you know.
You deserve it. Have you watched it yet?
Nope.
All right. We also want to thank the following producers of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network. They are Mike Bovia, Steve Bovia, Chaz Bradshaw, Kyle Castillo, Peter Craig, Andy Davenport, Craig Ewing, Jackie and Chris Hackney, Kimberly Hartman, David Hood, Lionel Marchand, Matt McGonigal, Darren Metcalf, Charlie Mulvey, Sean O'Halloran, Casey Pettit, Jamie Rogers, Major Self, Casey Shafsky, Terry Shull, Jim Stoffel, Chris Trabuzio, Ken Tripp, Christina Werther, and the lovely and talented Jess Vashon. Dan, the senior producer, is the one and only legendary, much heralded
Yes.
Jude Tatman.
Oh, I've been waiting for that name all day. Okay. You too can become a producer on the Trek Geeks Podcast Network, and it is so easy to do. Head on over to patreon.com/TrekGeeks for all the details.
Dan, next week, we're going to take a look at an episode that we looked at on the schedule and said, why are we going to talk about that? And that's going to be our episode next week on Trek Geeks.
It is going to be our episode, and it turns out that I'm the one who suggested it, but I have no memory of doing that. But that's okay, because that's just the way I am. So we're going to deep dive into Voyager's Season 4's Prey, and I think the reason I picked that is because, you know, the one and only Tony Todd is in it. So I
can pretty much guarantee that's the exact reason why you picked it.
That's pretty much it. It's all going to be next week on Trek Geeks, the flagship of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network.
I mean, as if you need a better reason to pick it.
I know, right?
Tony Todd, previous guest of the Trek Geeks Podcast, I might add. It's one I'm looking forward to talking about. It's got one of my favorite shots in all of Star Trek in this episode.
Was that when the A472's climbing the ship?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, baby. Yep.
Because that we just never seen stuff like that before.
Get a shadow on the hull.
But anyway, an episode that we might geek out over elements on next week here on the flagship. Of course, for more great Star Trek discussion, please do check out the other member podcasts here on the Trek Geeks Podcast Network. So many fantastic shows created by passionate fans who just want to share their love of Star Trek and Gene's vision. You can find all our podcasts in the free, that's FREE, Trek Geeks mobile app, or get a link to your favorite podcast player by visiting trekgeeks.com/listen.
The Trek Geeks Podcast Network. No one, I say no one, talks Trek like we do.
They all try. They don't do it, though. Of course, for all the news on all the Star Trek CO, please visit our great friends at treknews.net. For now, this has been episode number 294. 294. We do hope you all live long and prosper.
Coconut, Mr. Crusher. Engage.
Music for Trek Geeks is provided by 5-Year Mission. They're writing an original song for each episode of Star Trek. Hear more of their music at 5yearmission.net. Trek Geeks is a production of Coconut Media Works. Executive producers Bill Smith and Dan Davidson. For more great Star Trek discussion, discover the other shows of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network at trekgeeks.com or find us in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app.
Bing bong. Old Daniel.
Wait a minute. You're the same age as I am.
I'm 2 weeks younger.
Well,
You are-
same. The number's the same.
Doesn't matter. You are, in fact, older.
Well, 2 weeks. Wow. Oh, boy, I really got you there.
14 days.
How many hours is that? I'm not even going to try.
I would have to Google that.
Let's see. It's 14 days, 24 hours in a day. 14 times 24 is the 336.
Well, actually, that's the hour of the day that I was born, 3:36 in the morning. That's quite the coincidence.
Wow.
100%.
I think it's going to be like this all recording long. All kinds of coincidences. Coincidence eye? No.
Oh, my God.
Coinc.
So here's what I've discovered.
Oh, here we go.
As you know,
Yes.
just almost 9 short months ago, we adopted a rescue pocket pit bull named Isabella.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, you've met her, dummy.
Oh, right.
That's right. If I have learned anything in the last week, it's that I will never do anything alone ever again.
Nope.
So last night, well, you've had dogs for
Yeah.
quite some time. I've had dogs for quite some time. They like to run in their sleep. You know, when they dream, they sometimes run.
Oh, yeah.
You see their paws move.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Yep.
Isabella did that many, many times last night. Of course, she was curled up right against me. We were literally butt to butt. And so every time she would be like, you know, moving in her sleep, I would just feel like there was an earthquake about to occur. So as a result, she slept like an angel. I slept very poorly.
You look tired.
Thank
I
you.
don't mean
Thank
that in
you.
a bad. I don't mean that in a bad way, but I'm tired too. So, but that's
I'm tired of looking at you.
that's true. So I have a dog story also, which is it's not as good as yours, but it is funny. So yesterday afternoon, Sue's at her desk in the loft down the hall, and I'm here in my office. And whenever we're upstairs, the dogs are always sleeping next to her. There's there's a bed and blanket, and I'm just doing my work, and all of a sudden I hear, Aria was asleep, and she was dreaming. So I go running down the hall because I got to see what's going on. And she just woke up, and the listeners won't see this, but she's like this. She's like, she was like all shaky, like, what just happened? It was the cute. I wish I had filmed it. It was the cutest noise. It was so great.
She was like, what?
She was like that Muppet with the little red tuft of hair, and he's always like,
It's amazing because, you know, owners do seem more like their dogs every single day.
I do. Sue says I do cry out my sleep from time to time.
Really?
Yeah. Like high-pitched wailing.
I'm afraid to ask.
I don't know. I must have been dreaming about you and I get scared, so that's the only thing I can think of. Oh, so you can throw the insults, but when I do it, you're a jerk. You're a jerk.
That's because you're suck.
Wow. Anyway. Other
Thank
than
you.
that, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing?
I am doing great. As great can be.
Really?
Yeah, it's as great as it can be. I'm short staffed this week, so you know, and I don't have a management team, so pretty much I got to just fly by the seat of my pants all the time.
Oh, well, at least you're wearing pants, I hope.
Yes, I am today.
Oh,
I got a pair of jeans on with my Shark Side of the Moon shirt, Pink Floyd album cover with Jaws.
Did you see the science division Tribble cosplay of the Tribble as a shark?
I did.
That was pretty
wonderful. Good. It was excellent. All
Today's
the stuff
is
that
pretty
Science
good, too.
Division does is great. I love Science Division. They're so fun.
Today's is pretty good too. Hashtag Fizbin.
Fizbin. Okay. Science Division. I'm pulling it up right now. Look at those two gangsta tribbles.
I'm saying, don't do that ever again.
So I'm looking at the picture and I see the communicator. So the family had dinner at my brother's this past Saturday night, and I get there, and I haven't seen my brother in, I don't know, 3-4 months. I don't know. He's always golfing, so he's never around. And he goes, "Hey, call me on my phone. Call me on my phone." I'm like, "Dude, relax. I'm standing right here." He goes, just call me. So I call him, and of course, the first number I called was the wrong number. So I called his work number by mistake, and then I dial his number, and he's looking, and he pulls out the communicator, the Bluetooth one. He was so excited that he got the Bluetooth communicator that you have and I have, sitting right here on my desk. He was just so excited. He goes, yeah, one night I was sitting in my chair on my iPad at Amazon, and I had a couple drinks, and I came across this, and I bought it. And if you didn't have it, I was probably going to give it to you. I'm like, nope, you're stuck with it now, dummy. But it is cool.
That's an expensive mistake to make.
Yeah.
Or an expensive impulse buy.
Yes. Yeah, but that's all right. Now he's got it, and next time I go over, probably in 4 months, I'll bring mine, and we can be like communicator buddies. I don't even know what that means.
Well, it might be longer if you keep calling the wrong number.
Well, I got his voicemail at his work, but I'm like, it's ringing. I'm like, you gonna pick it up? He's like, it's not ringing. I'm like, oh, I called your work. Sorry. Everybody laughed. So then, this is another good story about this get together. Whole family's there. I'm deciding I'm going to make a new martini. A pomegranate martini. So Sue and I were at the store early in the day. We got our pomegranate juice and all the stuff we needed. So we're getting ready to go to Dawn's, and I put all the stuff in the bag, and we go over and we get there, and there's Austin's girlfriend is really looking forward to trying this martini, and I go in the bag and I take out the stuff. I forgot the pomegranate juice. So I'm like, oh, for the love of... So I'm like, all right, I'll be right back. I'm going to Shaw's. That's right down the road. So I go to Shaw's. I get there, and I go to the area in the produce section where the pomegranate juice is. Mm-hmm. And there's like 100 of them there. The pomegranate juice. I'm like, oh, good. All right. So I grab one, and I go, and I ring it out, and I get in the car, and I drive back, and I get there, and I put it on the counter. Out of the 110,000 pomegranate bottles that were there, I grabbed the one blueberry pomegranate.
What the...
I didn't even look. I just, they're all the pomegranate, because the pomegranate's red cap. So there's a whole bunch of red caps. So I just reach in, grab it, because I'm in a rush. I got the wrong one. They were still good, but it's just typical. I am an idiot.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I don't even have to say it anymore.
You don't have to say anything. No.
You do it for me.
Yep.
Which really is the best part.
I was like, and I was pissed. I was not happy with myself. I was ready to go out and get another one, but I didn't. I didn't. So everybody liked him anyway, so it was okay. But when we had the real pomegranate juice one, when we came back and had them yesterday or Sunday, they were much better. So yeah. So now we have a whole bunch of pomegranate and pomegranate blueberry juice. If anybody is thirsty.
Because just pour me a big old glass of pomegranate blueberry on the rocks.
Yummy, with some blueberries on top for a little accoutrement.
Little antioxidant.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
well, why did you automatically start to slip into Cyrano Jones?
I don't know. So it could be Cyrano Jones, and it could also be Ben the Giant Whale from Rudolph's Shiny New Year, because they had the same laugh. Sometimes I do it, and then if I go, I asked if you were comfortable. That's from Rudolph's Shiny New Year.
That's going to be you in just a couple of years.
A couple of days.
Especially after all that blueberry pomegranate.
When you come back after your long weekend, you're going to be like, hey, dude, I'm going to be like, I'm going to be like Mr. Magoo, Ben, the whale, and Cyrano Jones, all rolled into one.
When I visit you at the old folks' home, you'll be sitting in your chair, mumbling to yourself, going, and
you'll be like, wow, why can't he be in bed so I can smother him with that pillow that I've always wanted to?
Oh my God, that would be so amazing.
I know, right? See, I'm here to help. I'm here to help.
For the first time.
Death.
Yeah. Congratulations. There is a first for everything.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Right.
So yes, I am headed to the District of Columbia this weekend.
Yes, happy anniversary to you and your lovely bride.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited. It's been a while since we've been to DC. The last time we were there, we actually went for the 4th of July. God, I want to say about 10 years ago, and saw the fireworks from the FDR Memorial. It was a fantastic time, although it was probably one of the longest walks I've ever taken in my life.
Yeah. Last time I was in Washington, D.C., I was a junior in high school.
Wow.
So that was a while ago.
You got to fix that.
We're planning on going. We were talking about it the other day, and the four of us want to go down for a weekend and go to the Smithsonian and the Arlington and all that fun stuff. Stop in, say hi to Joe.
Joe
Biden.
Odds are he'll be in Delaware anyway. Don't worry about it.
That's true. Look, people.
Now, you stop in and see the original Enterprise at Air and Space.
Yes.
Along with Leonard Nimoy's ear tips, like I'm going to do this weekend.
I did see they had when I went. They had I don't think it was the Enterprise that they had something for Star Trek. Was it the Enterprise? And it just wasn't in good shape. I don't remember. The Enterprise. I think it was a fake one. It was a fake one hanging in the Smithsonian. It wasn't the original one that they used for filming like they have now.
They've had that 8 foot. I think it's 8 feet.
Yeah,
8 foot model for years in the gift shop.
Okay, that's what it must have been. Yeah.
And now it is on the main floor.
Okay.
Since the restoration, I saw it for the first time about 20 years ago in the gift shop.
Okay. Then that's what I saw it somewhere hanging up somewhere. But is that the one? That's not the one. What do they have up in New York? I know they got a big one up there. Is that an original one, or is that just something that somebody built?
Where in New York?
At the set tour.
I think that's just one that somebody built.
Oh, okay, because it looks pretty nice too.
The one at the Air and Space is the actual shooting model from the original series.
Yeah.
And since its restoration, it's been restored to have all the wires on the port side on the secondary hull.
Yep.
Which it didn't look that way when I saw it 20 years ago.
Yeah.
They had cleaned it up, so it'd have a beautiful shot from all sides.
Yep. Make sure you get some pictures of that big case, acrylic case that it's in. Glass case. Yeah. That's kind of too bad that they have a case like that, because there's people that have posted pictures of it. There's lots of reflection. It's like an Abrams movie.
Even 20 years ago, it was in a giant case.
Yeah.
I imagine they do that to help protect it from idiots like you.
Yeah. Yep.
And me.
Or you, so you don't drop it. Right. Yeah.
I couldn't lift that, Dan. I'm a weakling.
Oh, that's true.
I'm not like you. I'm not super strong.
Yeah.
I don't make things go.
We want more.
Your face wants more.
That makes no sense at all.
I know. Believe me, I know.
But that's okay. It's always good to talk to you, because I learn something new every day.
Really? What did you learn today?
I learned about werewolves yesterday. Go ahead.
Well, you can't just drop it like that. You kind of have to set the context.
Right. Well, we were in line to go into the gym at Dynamic Strength and Conditioning down in Nashua, which we always do. It's a great place. And you and Kelly were in front of us, and I was wearing my Monster Mash purple T-shirt, which is basically Frankenberry, Count Chocula, and Boo Berry, and it's a great little Halloween historical shirt, and I love it because I love those cereals. And we started talking about them, and then we were talking about the ones that aren't normally seen very much. And I said, there's a werewolf one, right? And you're both looking at me kind of crazy. And I'm like, yeah, it's called Fruit Brute. And it had a werewolf on the box. And I'll let you take over for what your wife had to say about it.
Oh, no, I'm going to let you finish it.
I don't even remember half of it, because she was talking about werewolves in my butthole, which has some phrase of some weird show that you guys watch, or some podcast or YouTube video or some craziness. I'm just upset that you talked about the werewolf that I have in my butthole. Nobody's supposed to know about that.
If you had paid attention, you would have realized it was an Instagram video about this kid.
I got the link right here on my phone.
Singing a song called "What's Inside Your Butthole."
Yes.
And this kid goes
she's
through the
behind
song.
you laughing.
And it just makes up this song on the spot, and it's like, maybe it's an astronaut, maybe it's what, honey?
I think it's spaceship.
Maybe it's a spaceship.
Oh, great!
Whatever.
Now she's on the podcast this week.
If you actually watched it and responded to it.
Did you hear that?
Maybe I did watch it and didn't feel like responding to it because my feelings were hurt.
I doubt it, because you never load up Instagram because you hate it.
The link she sent me was YouTube, I think, wasn't it? I think it was. Thank you, Kelly.
She just said you have no excuse, and you said thank you. You're a moron.
That's all right. No, because she sent it to YouTube because she knows I'm an idiot and don't know how to use the other one because it's dumb.
Your face is dumb.
I did not. Please let her know that I didn't call her dumb, because she'll hurt me.
He called you dumb. No.
He knows better.
Wow.
Dan knows better.
So this became, Dan, why do you have a werewolf in your butthole?
Yes.
And then I proceeded to tell our trainers that, hey, you should ask Dan about the werewolf in his butthole.
Every station, somebody came up and Delane was dying laughing.
And I just told it to one.
Yes, well, the worst one.
And they filtered it through the rest. That's your words, not mine. I happen to like Chris very much.
I love Chris. He's just a big mouth. No, and that's fun with this kind of stuff.
But
it was fun.
Dan, you really shouldn't keep them in there. You should let them out to breathe.
And the whole thing about, I guess the word, I can't remember the part of the story because everything else got so, put together, and it was so funny. Kelly was talking about something as a kid that she said brute that made her think of a werewolf or something like that. I don't remember all of it, but the whole thing was hysterical. It really was funny. I got fruit brute in my butthole.
Oh.
Werewolves butthole.
I just got a notification that I'm offline.
Oh.
And now I'm back online. All
Well,
right.
there you go. Okay.
I think maybe my werewolf call kind of
pretty bad.
Better than yours.
Oh.
Much
Werewolf,
better.
or as I told you yesterday, and you were like, what the hell? I have a habit of doing lyrics incorrectly, which is no surprise. For years and years and years, because as we talked about earlier, I am an idiot. I thought the lyrics were Werewolves of Thunder.
Warren Zevon is rolling over in his grave right now.
There was another one. Oh, the other one was Rolling Stones the other night where we're listening to something. I can't remember which one it was now, but I started saying, oh yeah, we were talking about something and when I was in the shower that morning, the song by the Rolling Stones was on. I'll get to it in a second. And then later on, Sue and I are talking, and I accidentally called my neighbor Angel instead of Crystal. And Sue's looking at me, and I'm like, Angel, where did that come from? And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. I was listening to Angel came on the radio this morning when I was taking a shower by the Rolling Stones. And she's looking at me. She's going, what? And I'm like, Angel. And she goes, that's Angie.
Yeah.
And I'm like, my entire life I've been singing it as Angel. That's what I do. It's like in Stairway to Heaven. I used to say the wino down the road instead of the real lyrics.
This has been the longest outtake ever, and only about half of it's been tolerable.
But people just know how stupid I am now. So it's all worth it, right?
I don't think there was really ever any doubt in their mind. Here we are, 294 episodes in.
Yeah.
It's not now they've discovered this.
Now it's just, they're like, wow, he's really worse than we thought.
No, I think they figure that your decline is pretty much on par with the projections.
All right, I'm done.
Oh, thank you. Are you okay? You sound like you're going to die. You sound like me a few weeks ago.
I'm going to start coughing in a second. I'm trying not to. Anyway. Yeah.
Kill Spock? That's not what we came for.
That's not what we're recording Trek Geeks for, is it? Oh, well, anyway. So, yeah, I'm ready.
Are you?
Yeah, I knew that's what you're going to ask. See, I was anticipatory, which is a real word.
It is, but I don't think you used it in the correct tense or context. That's fine.
So what? What do I use any English language in the right context?
There's only one English language, and I would say you never use it. And before people at me, yes, there is one English language. There are a lot of different words and variants, but the English they speak in the UK, while it may have different words and meanings, is still English.
Oh, my goodness gracious. This is fun.
No, for you. Let's go.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Okay, we're done.
Dummy.